You've been told your salary is your limitation, that you can't get rich on it. But the truth is, your salary was never meant to make you rich. It was meant to make you steady. What makes you rich is what you do beyond the paycheck, how you think, how you grow, how you use that income to build something greater. The system wants you to believe your earning power ends where your paycheck ends. But I'm here to tell you, that's the biggest lie ever told. You can't buy freedom with a raise, but you can build it with wisdom. Most people are not poor because of their jobs. They're poor because their jobs became their cages. The paycheck that feeds them also blinds them. They've mistaken comfort for progress, routine for security. But listen, a job was never meant to be a life sentence. It was meant to be your first investor. If you can learn to turn your salary into a seed, that seed will grow into freedom. It's not about how much you earn. It's about what you become with what you earn. If there's one principle that separates the rich from the poor, it's this: they pay themselves first. Most people have that equation backward. The moment they receive their paycheck, they pay the landlord, the credit card, the utilities, the taxes, the subscriptions, and by the time they're done, they tell themselves, next month I'll start saving. But next month looks exactly like this one, full of bills, full of excuses, and empty of savings. You can't get rich if you keep paying everyone else before you pay yourself. Your future self deserves to come first, not last. I remember when I first learned this lesson, I was broke, not just in my wallet, but in my habits. Every dollar that came in went right back out. I used to think, once I start making more, I'll start saving. That's the illusion that keeps most people poor. Because it's not about how much you earn, it's about how you handle what you earn. If you can't save a dime out of a dollar, you won't save 100 out of 1,000. Discipline doesn't come with the size of your income. It comes with the strength of your intention. When my mentor sat me down, he said, before you pay the world, pay yourself. It felt strange at first. I thought, how can I save when there's so much to pay? But I decided to try. I started putting 10% of every paycheck into a separate account, money I couldn't touch, money that belonged to my future. I didn't call it a savings account. I called it my freedom fund. That name changed how I viewed it. It wasn't about emergencies. It was about possibilities. Each dollar I saved wasn't just currency. It was a seed. And when you plant seeds, the harvest eventually comes. Saving is not about being cheap or cautious. It's about respect. It's the highest form of self-respect you can practice. Every time you save first, you tell your future self, I care about you. It builds character, confidence, and control. Because if you can master your money, you can master your life. Once I made it automatic, that 10% leaving my account the day I got paid, I didn't have to think about it anymore. The discipline turned into a habit, and the habit turned into progress. Now, here's what's magical. As that small fund grows, so does your mindset. You stop feeling like a victim of bills and start feeling like the architect of your destiny. And over time, that discipline compounds just like money does. You'll find yourself saving more, investing smarter, and worrying less. So don't wait for the perfect time or the perfect income. Start today. Take that first slice of every paycheck and put it where it belongs, in your freedom fund. Make it non-negotiable, make it automatic, and watch your confidence grow along with your account. Remember, wealth doesn't begin with money, it begins with discipline. And the discipline to pay yourself first is where your journey to freedom truly begins. Most people live their entire lives working for a paycheck, but they never stop to ask what that paycheck is truly for. They let their job become their identity. They introduce themselves not by who they are, but by what they do. I'm an accountant. I'm a teacher. I'm a technician. But here's something I learned early on. Your job is not who you are. It's simply your investor. Your salary is the seed money your job gives you to build the life you actually want. It's not meant to define you. It's meant to fund your freedom. When I was young, I thought, like most people do, that the only path to success was to climb higher on the corporate ladder. I thought if I just worked harder, stayed longer, and got that next promotion, then I'd finally make it. But one day a mentor of mine looked me straight in the eye and said, if you're not using your job to buy your freedom, You'll be selling your life by the hour for the rest of it. That hit me like a thunderbolt. I realized I was working for survival, not for independence. My paycheck was keeping me alive, but it wasn't setting me free. So I began to treat my job differently. I started seeing it as my first investor, the one giving me capital to build my future. Every paycheck became a partnership, part of it for my present, and part of it for my freedom. I set aside a percentage for investments, for small ventures, for skills that could multiply my value. I stopped spending for comfort and started allocating for growth. The moment I changed how I treated my job, everything changed. I stopped feeling trapped by it. Suddenly, my work wasn't a cage, it was a classroom. I was learning skills, systems, and lessons that I could one day apply in my own enterprises. The wealthy think this way naturally. They use their jobs to gather capital, discipline, and experience. They save and invest until the day their money works harder than they do. The poor, on the other hand, get stuck identifying with their position. They buy things to prove their worth instead of investing in their potential. But here's the truth. Your salary was never meant to buy status. It was meant to buy freedom. So take a new approach starting today. Set aside part of each paycheck for something that builds your independence. Maybe it's an investment, a business idea, or a skill that multiplies your value. Every quarter, learn something new that increases your earning potential. Use your job to sharpen your discipline, your leadership, and your problem solving, the very same skills that will one day allow you to build something of your own. Never let your job be the final destination. Let it be the investor that funds your next chapter. Because when you stop living from your paycheck and start building beyond it, you step from dependence into power. And that's when your salary stops being your ceiling and becomes your launch pad to freedom. If you ever want to know why some people climb and others stay stuck, it's not because of luck, talent, or even timing. It's because of what they invest in. Most people invest their time in entertainment. The wealthy invest theirs in education. Your real wealth is not in your bank account. It's in your mind, your character, and the skills you carry. The most valuable asset you will ever own is the person you become. Because when you grow, everything around you grows. Your income, your influence, your opportunities. I remember when I was young and broke, I asked a successful man how he turned his life around. He told me, "I didn't wait for the economy to change, I changed myself." That line stayed with me. The world rewards the person who improves. Your paycheck might stop one day, but your skills will always pay you. Jobs can vanish, markets can shift, but wisdom, discipline, and capability travel with you wherever you go. The secret is to trade entertainment for education. Now, I'm not saying you can't enjoy yourself. We all need a little fun. But if you spend more time watching others live their dreams than building your own, don't be surprised when they keep winning and you keep wishing. Every movie, every show, every distraction that doesn't teach you something costs you a piece of your potential. And potential is the only currency that truly multiplies. Start small. Dedicate 30 minutes a day to learning something that makes you more valuable. Read books, listen to podcasts, watch educational videos, or take a course. Don't just consume knowledge, apply it. Use what you learn immediately. Every new skill should create a result, even a small one. Because when you apply what you know, you transform information into income. That's the true alchemy of wealth, turning ideas into results. When I first began to study personal development, I read one book that completely changed how I thought about time and money. It taught me that wealth is not earned by the hour, it's earned by the level of value you bring to each hour. That one concept helped me triple my income in a few short years. Why? Because I stopped working harder on my job and started working harder on myself. So let me give you a little challenge. Every day, learn something new that increases your market value. Every week, apply at least one thing you've learned to produce a measurable result. And every month, review your growth. Ask yourself, am I more valuable than I was last month? If the answer is yes, wealth is inevitable. Remember, your paycheck feeds your present, but your skills feed your future. If you keep investing in yourself, one day your skills will pay you far more than any job ever could, because the income you earn will always rise to match the person you've become. If there's one truth I wish more people understood, it's this. One income is survival, multiple streams are freedom. You can't depend on a single paycheck forever. The moment that paycheck stops, your entire financial structure collapses. And that's how most people live, one job away from panic, one emergency away from debt. But those who build wealth understand a different philosophy. They don't rely on one river of income. They build streams that keep flowing even when one dries up. True freedom begins the day your money comes from more than one place. I remember when I first learned this lesson. I was working full-time, exhausted at the end of every day, telling myself there was no time for anything else. But then my mentor asked me a question that shifted everything. He said, if you lost your job tomorrow, how long could you last? The silence that followed was enough of an answer. I realized I wasn't building a life, I was maintaining one. And maintaining is not living. From that day forward, I decided to build something on the side, not to escape my job, but to expand my future. You don't have to start big, you just have to start. Take a skill, a talent, or even a hobby, and learn how to monetize it. Maybe it's tutoring, freelancing, creating digital content, or selling a product you believe in. The internet has made it easier than ever to turn ideas into income. What matters most is consistency. Dedicate evenings or weekends, the hours most people waste, to building something that could one day buy your freedom. The discipline you apply outside of your job is what determines how fast you escape dependence on it. In the beginning, your side income may seem small, just a trickle. But remember, every river starts as a stream. Keep reinvesting your profits, not into comfort, but into growth, better tools, better learning, better systems. Don't spend the extra money on luxuries, spend it on leverage. Let your side hustle teach you business principles, marketing, discipline, sales, and persistence. These lessons compound far faster than money ever could. I've seen this pattern in countless people. The moment they create a second stream of income, their confidence changes. They stop worrying about what happens if their boss calls them in one morning with bad news. They stop living in fear of layoffs or recessions. Because once you build something of your own, you realize you're not just earning income, you're earning independence. And that's the goal, freedom. A job can pay your bills, but it's your side venture that will one day pay for your dreams. Don't wait for more time or the perfect idea. Those excuses will keep you broke forever. Start now, start small, but start building. Because one income keeps you alive, multiple incomes let you live. And the sooner you build your own stream, the sooner you'll stop depending on the tides of someone else's ocean. What you know has the power to change your life if you learn how to use it. Knowledge by itself doesn't make you wealthy. What makes you wealthy is how you apply, package, and share that knowledge. I often say that what you know can either fade or pay, and that depends entirely on what you do with it. The poor collect knowledge like souvenirs. The wealthy transform it into assets. Your mind is a gold mine, but only if you start digging. I learned this truth the moment I realized that the most valuable thing I had wasn't my job, it was what I'd learned from my journey. I used to think that experience only mattered if someone paid you for it through a salary or a promotion. But one day, I understood something simple but profound. My knowledge was an asset that could outlive my paycheck. The lessons, the skills, the systems I had developed, they were valuable not just to me, but to others. That's when everything changed. See, most people underestimate what they know. They spend years mastering a craft, learning a trade, solving problems and gaining insights, and then they let all that wisdom sit idle. Meanwhile, others are out there teaching, mentoring, writing, creating, turning what they know into streams of income. The world rewards those who share value. If you know something that can help someone else save time, make money, or improve their life, that's an asset. And like all assets, it should be cultivated, polished, and shared. Start documenting what you know. Write it down, record it, systemize it. Turn your expertise into content. Maybe that's an online course, a workshop, a blog, or even a simple video. The tools today make it easier than ever to reach people around the world who need what you already have. Don't wait until you're an expert. Begin with what you've learned so far. Someone out there is one step behind you and needs your guidance to take the next step. Teaching is one of the best investments you can make in yourself. When you mentor others, you deepen your own mastery. Every time you explain an idea, you clarify it for yourself. Every time you help someone else grow, you grow stronger in the process. That's the beauty of sharing knowledge. It multiplies. The more you give, the more it grows. And over time, What starts as a passion project can become an asset that pays you passively. Whether it's digital products, educational material, or intellectual property, your ideas can generate income long after the work is done. Imagine earning while you sleep because your knowledge is serving others even when you're not. That's what true leverage looks like. The difference between those who just know and those who grow is action. Don't let your wisdom collect dust, let it collect dividends. Because when you turn your knowledge into an asset, you're not just working for money anymore. You're creating value that keeps working for you long after the paycheck stops. You don't have to own a company to think like an owner. Ownership is not a title on a business card, it's a mindset, a philosophy, a way of approaching life. The people who rise in any organization, the ones who move from average to exceptional, all share one thing in common. They take responsibility for results, not just tasks. The poor think in terms of hours. I worked 8 today. The wealthy think in terms of outcomes. What did I build today? When you think like an owner, everything about your work changes. Your attitude, your energy, your value. I remember a time early in my career when I was frustrated because I wasn't earning what I felt I deserved. My mentor asked me, do you own the results or just the effort? I didn't quite understand at first. Then he said, you're getting paid for effort because that's all you're giving. The marketplace pays for results. That struck me. He was right. I was doing what was required, but not what was remarkable. I was doing the job, but I wasn't owning it. From that day forward, I decided to treat my job as if it were my own business. I showed up earlier, thought deeper, looked for ways to create more value than I was being paid for. And something amazing happened. Opportunities started opening up. People noticed. My income grew not because I demanded more, but because I became worth more. When you think like an owner, you stop waiting for instructions and start solving problems. You stop clocking time and start creating results. You begin to care about the bigger picture, how the company earns, how the product improves, how customers feel. Learn how your organization makes money. Ask yourself, what can I do to help it earn more or save more? That simple shift from doing your job to understanding the business transforms your role from a cost to an asset. And assets are rewarded, always. Even if you're not in charge, act like you are. Take initiative. Be proactive. When something goes wrong, don't look for someone to blame, look for a way to fix it. When you think like an owner, people trust you more, rely on you more, and reward you more. And here's the secret. That mindset doesn't just make you more valuable to your employer. It prepares you for your own ventures one day. Every lesson you learn by taking ownership now becomes a skill you can apply when you're building something of your own later. Ownership is the foundation of wealth. The more responsibility you take, the more authority you earn. The more you contribute, the more you control your destiny. So wherever you are, in a company, a project, or your own small hustle, think and act like it's yours. Because when you take ownership of your results, you stop waiting for permission to grow. And that's when life starts rewarding you like the owner you've already become. If you look closely at anyone who's achieved extraordinary wealth or influence, you'll find one truth hiding behind every story: they didn't get there alone. Opportunities rarely appear out of thin air, they travel through people. Relationships are the bridges that connect you to possibilities you could never reach on your own. That's why I always say wealth is built through people. Success moves through networks, not luck, not chance, but connection. Early in my life, I believed that hard work alone was enough. I thought if I just worked harder, longer, and better than everyone else, success would find me. And while discipline and effort matter, I later learned that isolation keeps you invisible. Hard work behind closed doors doesn't build opportunity, people do. The right connection, the right mentor, the right conversation can save you years of struggle. I'll never forget the day I met a man at a seminar who would later become my business partner. That one relationship opened doors I didn't even know existed. And all it took was the courage to introduce myself and the wisdom to listen more than I spoke. Most people underestimate the power of their circle. They spend time with people who complain, who gossip, who live small, and then wonder why their life doesn't grow. Your environment either expands you or contains you. If you surround yourself with people who think big, who set goals, who live with discipline, your own standards rise automatically. The opposite is also true. If your circle tolerates mediocrity, you'll start lowering your expectations without even realizing it. So be intentional with your associations. Don't network for convenience, network for elevation. Start by showing up where growth-minded people gather. Seminars, conferences, professional meetups, online communities. Make it a goal to meet one new connection every week. But here's the secret. Don't approach networking with a "what can I get" attitude. Approach it with "how can I serve?" Add value first. When you help others succeed, you become magnetic. Generosity is the seed of meaningful connection. And always remember names, interests, and details. Keep a network journal if you must. The people who feel remembered feel respected, and respect is the foundation of trust. Relationships compound just like money does. The people you invest in today by serving, listening, and supporting may become your greatest collaborators, mentors, or partners tomorrow. But this only happens if you nurture those connections with sincerity. Don't chase influence, build authenticity. People don't follow those who seek to use them. They follow those who seek to uplift them. So take a look at your circle. Does it challenge you? Does it inspire you? Does it make you think bigger? If not, it's time to expand it. Remember, success isn't a solo climb. It's a shared ascent. And when you build intentionally, serve genuinely, and stay connected to people who are growing, your wealth, in every sense of the word, begins to multiply. Because in the end, your network doesn't just determine your net worth, it shapes your entire destiny. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned about building wealth is that discipline alone will never get you all the way. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel unstoppable, and some days you can barely get out of bed. That's why the truly wealthy don't rely on willpower alone. They build systems that work, even when they don't. Automating wealth habits is not just a convenience. It's a strategy that protects progress when motivation fades, when life gets messy, or when distractions try to pull you off course. I remember when I first began automating my savings. I used to worry I wouldn't have enough to invest after paying bills, so I would procrastinate. Some months I succeeded, other months I failed. The inconsistency was frustrating and discouraging. Then I realized something simple. I didn't need to rely on myself remembering to save. I just needed to set up the system and let it run. I started scheduling automatic transfers into my savings and investment accounts on the day I got paid. Overnight, I went from sporadic saving to consistent wealth building without having to fight my emotions or my impulses. That small system completely changed my trajectory. Systems work because they remove the human error, fear, and distraction from the process. You don't have to debate with yourself each month about whether to save or invest. The decision is already made. Automate your transfers, automate your contributions to education, buy books, subscribe to courses, attend seminars. Build routines that nurture both your financial growth and personal development. Set recurring reminders to review your finances, track progress, and adjust goals quarterly. It's not enough to just save. You need a system to check your growth, refine strategies, and ensure you're moving forward consistently. Think about it this way. A system doesn't get tired. It doesn't get bored. It doesn't forget. When you automate your wealth habits, you create a force that works for you while you sleep, work, or focus on other opportunities. It compounds silently like interest accumulating in a bank account. Over time, the small, consistent actions automated in your life produce exponential results. Many people fail because they rely on motivation, not mechanics. They wait for inspiration to strike, and it rarely does. Build your systems first and let motivation catch up. Automating your wealth habits turns intention into action, thought into outcome, and effort into results, even on the days when you feel like doing nothing. That is the true power of automation. It keeps your growth moving forward, no matter what life throws at you. One of the most profound lessons I've learned in life is that wealth is never built purely by working harder. It's built by working smarter. You see, the poor believe that more effort equals more results. They measure success by hours spent, sweat shed, or tasks completed. The wealthy measure success by leverage, the ability to multiply effort through systems, tools, and people. Leverage is what turns ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes, and it's available to anyone willing to think beyond trading hours for dollars. I remember when I first started applying leverage in my own journey. Early on, I tried to do everything myself, every client call, every administrative task, every small detail. I was exhausted, yet progress felt painfully slow. One day, a mentor asked me, "Are you working hard or are you working smart?" That question changed everything. I realized that I was my own bottleneck. If I wanted to grow, I needed systems, I needed help, and I needed to invest in tools that amplified my efforts. Leverage comes in many forms. People are one of the most powerful forms of leverage. Hiring, mentoring, or collaborating allows you to accomplish more than you ever could alone. But leverage is not just about manpower, it's also about tools and technology. Today, apps can automate finances, track investments, manage projects, and even remind you to study or take action. Each tool you implement saves hours of effort that can be redirected toward growth and creation. Even small automation like scheduling payments, automating savings, or using a calendar to track priorities compounds over time. The principle is simple. Focus your energy on the areas where your contribution creates the greatest return, and delegate or automate the rest. Stop wasting hours on tasks that don't require your unique abilities. Every hour you free through leverage becomes an opportunity to generate more value, learn more skills, or create additional income streams. This is how the wealthy grow faster without burning out. They multiply their time, attention, and effort. Many people think leverage is about shortcuts or luck, but it's actually about strategy and intentionality. It's not working less, it's working better, with precision, planning, and purpose. When you combine people, technology, and systems in a way that amplifies your unique strengths, your productivity skyrockets. Leverage turns time into impact, effort into results, and discipline into momentum. The sooner you embrace it, the sooner you stop being a prisoner of your own schedule and start becoming the architect of your own wealth. Because at the end of the day, the rich don't earn more simply by trying harder. They earn more by multiplying every bit of effort they put in. That is the true power of leverage. Time is the one resource you can never buy back, borrow, or earn more of. Yet, it is also the most powerful ally you can ever have, if you learn to use it wisely. Most people treat time as something to spend, often frittering it away on distractions, comfort, or avoidance. The wealthy, however, treat time as an investment. They understand that every day, every hour, every small action compounds, creating results far greater than the effort alone would suggest. Time itself becomes an invisible partner in the creation of wealth. I remember when I first learned the magic of time. Early in my career, I hesitated to start investing because I thought I needed a large sum to make a difference. I delayed, thinking I could start tomorrow or next year. Then I realized that even a small investment made consistently would grow far beyond a delayed, larger investment. That realization changed everything. The earlier you begin, the more time works in your favor. Compound interest, whether in money, skills, or relationships, doesn't just add up, it multiplies. Small steps taken today create exponential results tomorrow. The key is consistency, not perfection. Waiting until conditions are perfect or until you have a big break is the enemy of progress. Start where you are, with what you have, and let time do the heavy lifting. For example, investing a modest amount each month may seem insignificant at first, but over 10, 20, or 30 years, the compounding effect turns a small seed into a forest. The same applies to knowledge, habits, and personal growth. Learn a little every day, apply it, and watch your life transform quietly yet powerfully. Tracking progress is also essential. When you visualize growth, whether it's your investments, skills, or networks, you remain motivated and disciplined. Set up a system to monitor your compounding returns, reinvesting gains to accelerate results. This creates a feedback loop of momentum where small actions feed larger outcomes, and larger outcomes reinforce further action. Time is neutral, but your choices determine whether it becomes a friend or a foe. Start now, even with a small action, because time magnifies effort, patience, and consistency. The wealth you seek isn't just built by money, it's built by actions repeated over time, by decisions made early, and by a mind that respects the power of compounding. When you turn time into an ally, you stop chasing shortcuts and start building real, lasting abundance. The earlier you start, the greater the advantage, and every moment you delay is an opportunity lost. Most people think money saved is meant for safety, a cushion against life's uncertainties. And while security has its place, it will never create freedom. True wealth doesn't come from avoiding risk. It comes from being ready to seize opportunity. The poor save to feel safe. The wealthy save to be ready. Security is safe, but opportunity is powerful. When you learn to save with purpose, your money stops being a passive shield and starts becoming a launch pad for growth. I remember my first encounter with this principle. Early in my career, I was frugal and careful, like many of us are taught to be. Every rupee went into an emergency fund, and I felt secure. But then I saw someone I respected take a calculated risk. They invested in a small business while keeping a portion aside for necessities. That move changed their financial trajectory. I realized that having money only for emergencies keeps you in a defensive posture. The real magic happens when part of your savings is reserved to capture opportunities that can generate income and build wealth. That's the mindset shift, saving to create, not just to protect. The strategy is simple. Divide your savings into two categories. One is for security, enough to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses so that you aren't trapped by immediate emergencies. The other is your opportunity fund, money set aside for investments, ventures, or learning experiences that can increase your earning potential. This fund should not be touched for trivial spending or comfort. Its sole purpose is to allow you to act when a valuable opportunity presents itself. Discipline is key here. The temptation to dip into this fund for convenience is strong, but every time you honor it, you reinforce the mindset of wealth. You begin to see money not as something to hoard or spend impulsively, but as a tool that works for you. When the right opportunity arises, a business, a course, a property, or a partnership, you are prepared to act without hesitation. That readiness alone multiplies your advantage because the market rewards those who can move fast and decisively. Saving for opportunity cultivates patience, foresight, and courage. It turns you from a passive participant into an active architect of your future. Security alone keeps you alive. Opportunity builds your life. When you learn to set aside money not just for protection but for creation, you position yourself to leap ahead of those who merely wait for luck. Wealth favors the prepared, and your opportunity fund is the key that unlocks doors others can only watch from afar. One of the most overlooked secrets of wealth is this: the marketplace doesn't reward effort alone, it rewards value. Many people think that if they show up, work their hours, and do what's required, they'll be compensated fairly. But life doesn't work that way. The world pays for results, for solutions, for people who make a difference. If you want to escape mediocrity and start building real wealth, you must learn to serve more than you're paid for, give more than is expected, and the returns, financial and reputational, will follow. I've learned this principle early in my career. I worked a job where I could have done just enough to get by. Most of my peers did exactly that, punching the clock, doing the minimum. But I started asking myself, how can I make this process better? How can I save the company time, resources, or money? How can I make my boss and my clients look good? Each day, I tried to improve even slightly. A better report, a faster solution, a new idea. The results were remarkable. Not only was I noticed, but doors opened that I had no way of predicting. The world rewards those who create value beyond expectation. This principle is simple but not easy. Start by improving yourself by 1% every week. Tiny increments add up, and over months and years, those improvements compound into expertise, credibility, and influence. Look for ways to save money, streamline processes, or generate new revenue for your employer or clients. When you consistently deliver more than what's required, you become indispensable, and that position of leverage multiplies opportunities to earn, invest, and grow. Reputation is the silent multiplier of wealth. People hire, promote, partner with, and pay those who consistently deliver exceptional results. Serving more than you're paid for builds trust, respect, and influence, assets far more valuable than any paycheck alone. It creates momentum because one act of extra service often leads to another opportunity, another recommendation, another avenue for income. Remember, the marketplace doesn't see your effort. It sees the difference you make. Excellence always pays, perhaps not immediately, but in ways that compound over time. When you choose to give more than you receive, you shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Your value becomes your currency, and in the long run, value always wins. Serve more than you're paid for. And wealth, opportunity, and freedom follow naturally. One of the most important truths about building wealth is this: money flows where trust and influence flow. You can have the best product, the best idea, or the best skill in the world. But if you can't communicate it effectively, it won't create value. And without value, money never follows. Learning to sell is not about trickery or manipulation. It's about persuasion, clarity, and building trust. Every wealthy person I've known understands that the ability to communicate ideas, inspire action, and lead others is as valuable as any asset. Early in my career, I avoided sales. I thought selling was pushy, uncomfortable, and beneath real work. But the moment I realized that life itself is a negotiation, whether it's asking for a raise, pitching an idea, or presenting a vision, everything changed. I began to study the principles of influence, not just for business, but for life. How do leaders inspire their teams? How do innovators convince investors? How do educators motivate students? The answer is consistent, clear communication, credibility, and understanding others' needs. The strategy is simple, though it requires practice. Start by learning. Read books on sales psychology, negotiation, and effective communication. Study great communicators. Observe how they lead without formal authority, how they create excitement around their ideas, and how they turn objections into opportunities. Next, practice daily. Ask for what you want: a promotion, a contract, an opportunity, with confidence and respect. Each attempt strengthens your ability to influence and express value. Selling is not limited to products. Every interaction is a chance to sell your ideas, your skills, and your vision. Even in everyday life, people are persuaded to act when they understand your value and trust your intentions. Over time, these skills compound. The better you get at articulating ideas and inspiring action, the more doors open, the more opportunities arrive, and the more wealth flows naturally. Remember, wealth doesn't just follow hard work, it follows influence. And influence is born from communication, trust, and the courage to ask for what you deserve. Master this and you don't just earn money, you create a life where your ideas, your skills, and your actions continuously generate abundance. Selling isn't a skill reserved for a few. It's a mindset that multiplies every effort you make. One of the most powerful ways to accelerate your journey to wealth is to study those who have already achieved it. Success leaves clues, and every wealthy person's life is a roadmap if you know how to read it. The human mind grows by exposure. When you surround yourself with ideas, habits, and strategies of the successful, your thinking begins to shift. You begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles, solutions where others see problems, and possibilities where others see limits. Early in my life, I realized I didn't need to invent everything from scratch. Instead of stumbling blindly, I began studying the lives of people who had already achieved what I wanted. I read biographies, watched interviews, and sought out mentors who could teach me the nuances of wealth, leadership, and discipline. One principle applied at a time, small, consistent lessons transformed the way I thought about money, time, and personal growth. The key is not to imitate blindly, but to internalize principles and adapt them to your own circumstances. The strategy is straightforward. Find a mentor whose results you admire and follow them consistently. Don't just consume their content casually. Study it, reflect on it, and implement it in your own life. Each week, pick one principle and put it into practice. Over time, these small applications compound. Just as you invest money and watch it grow through compounding interest, your mind compounds wisdom, insight, and skill. The habits, perspectives, and thought patterns of the wealthy begin to shape your own. Remember, isolation is the enemy of growth. The poor try to figure everything out on their own, limiting their perspective and slowing progress. The wealthy accelerate learning by standing on the shoulders of giants, by leveraging experience instead of repeating mistakes. Whether it's learning negotiation skills, investment strategies, or the mindset of abundance, the knowledge is out there. You only need to seek it actively and apply it consistently. Success leaves clues. Every wealthy person has navigated obstacles, made disciplined choices, and seized opportunities. By studying them closely, you avoid trial and error, shorten your learning curve, and elevate your thinking. The more you expose yourself to proven principles and emulate their application, the faster your mind expands and the sooner you step into the life you've envisioned. Growth is intentional, and it begins with learning from those who have already succeeded. One of the simplest yet most powerful principles of wealth is this: what gets measured gets improved. Most people drift through life unaware of where their money goes, and that lack of awareness keeps them trapped in scarcity. You cannot control what you do not track. Awareness is the first step toward mastery, and mastery over your money begins when you know exactly how it flows in and out of your life. Early in my journey, I realized that I was often reacting to money rather than directing it. I would spend impulsively, save inconsistently, and worry about the next paycheck. Then I started tracking every single dollar, not just the big expenses, but even the small, seemingly insignificant ones. Writing down every payment, every deposit, and every investment created a mirror for my financial life. Suddenly, I could see patterns, spot waste, and make conscious choices about where my money went. That practice alone shifted my results dramatically. The strategy is simple: track everything. Use a budgeting app, a spreadsheet, or a journal. Whatever works for you, and be consistent. Record all income, all expenses, and track your net worth monthly. Seeing the flow of money gives you clarity about where to cut, where to invest, and how to optimize for growth. Awareness creates control, and control creates confidence. Once you know exactly how your money moves, you can direct it intentionally toward freedom and opportunity, rather than letting it slip away unnoticed. Tracking money also cultivates discipline and mindfulness. Every time you review your finances, you reinforce the habit of intentional spending, saving, and investing. It becomes easier to identify areas of improvement and to celebrate small wins. These small wins are critical. They build momentum and motivation, which compound over time just like money itself. Remember, awareness is power. Financial mastery does not begin with complex strategies or risky investments. It begins with knowing your current reality and taking deliberate action. When you track every dollar, you stop being a passenger in your financial life and become the driver. You gain the insight to make informed decisions, seize opportunities, and create a system that works for you. The more disciplined you become in observing and directing your resources, the faster you move from scarcity to abundance. Money follows clarity, and clarity begins with tracking. Every dollar has a purpose. Make sure you know what that purpose is. One of the most overlooked truths about building wealth is that it isn't about appearances, it's about substance. Too many people focus on looking rich, the fancy car, the designer clothes, the latest gadgets, thinking that image equals success. But wealth whispers quietly. It doesn't need to announce itself. True financial freedom is built on assets that grow over time, not on temporary displays that fade the moment the next trend arrives. Focusing on image over substance is a trap that keeps most people in scarcity, always chasing the next thing to look wealthy instead of creating real wealth. I learned this lesson early in my life. I worked hard, earned my first decent paycheck, and the temptation to buy flashy items was strong. But I realized that every dollar spent on appearances was a dollar that couldn't be invested in something that would produce more money. The car, the expensive suit, the fancy gadgets, they provided satisfaction for a moment, but they didn't build financial independence. When I redirected my spending toward assets, small investments, savings, and business opportunities, I began to notice something remarkable. The value of what I owned grew silently, compounding over time, while the allure of appearances faded into irrelevance. The strategy is simple but requires discipline. Delay luxury until your assets are creating enough income to support it comfortably. Focus on acquiring things that appreciate in value: real estate, businesses, stocks, intellectual property, or anything that generates cash flow. Avoid comparing yourself to others. Someone else's lifestyle may be financed by debt or luck, not wealth. Your goal is freedom, not admiration. The more you channel your energy and money into assets rather than consumption, the faster your net worth grows and the less stressful your financial life becomes. This mindset shift also changes how you measure success. Instead of asking, "Do I look rich?" you ask, "Do I own things that work for me?" Your life becomes guided by long-term growth, not fleeting pleasure. Wealth built quietly through assets allows freedom, options, and security, while wealth spent on appearances vanishes as quickly as it arrived. Remember, the world will applaud what looks impressive, but financial freedom is earned in silence, not applause. Build assets, not appearances, and over time, wealth will quietly accumulate, giving you the independence, security, and options that no flashy display can ever replace. Focus on substance, and your financial future becomes unstoppable. One of the most powerful ways to deepen your understanding of wealth is to teach what you learn. Knowledge alone is like a seed in the dark. It has potential, but it doesn't grow unless it's nourished and applied. The moment you explain a concept, mentor someone, or share a principle with another person, your mind organizes and solidifies that information. Teaching transforms passive understanding into active mastery. When it comes to money, this is especially true. Discussing financial lessons, strategies, and habits with others forces you to clarify your thinking, recognize gaps, and reinforce discipline. I remember early in my career when I first began reading about investing, money management, and personal development. I understood some of the concepts, but it wasn't until I started mentoring a colleague and explaining what I had learned that the ideas truly clicked. I had to simplify, organize, and articulate the principles in ways that made sense to someone else. In doing so, my own comprehension deepened, and I began to see patterns and strategies I had missed before. Teaching created a feedback loop. The act of helping others multiplied my own understanding and accelerated my progress. The strategy is simple. Find someone who is one step behind you in their financial journey and help them advance. This could be a family member, a friend, or a colleague. Share your lessons openly, discuss challenges, and explore solutions together. Talking about money, saving strategies, investing principles, and wealth-building habits strengthens your own mindset and makes your learning tangible. Beyond individual mentoring, create a personal wealth wisdom notebook. Record every insight, every lesson, and every experience. Over time, this notebook becomes a resource not only for you, but for others you may mentor in the future. Teaching also cultivates generosity, leadership, and credibility, qualities that compound into opportunity and influence. When you guide others toward financial growth, you naturally build trust, strengthen relationships, and reinforce a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. It's one thing to accumulate knowledge for yourself. It's another to create a ripple effect of wisdom that empowers multiple people, multiplying impact far beyond your individual efforts. Remember, true mastery is measured by what you can give away, not just what you retain. By teaching what you learn, your financial education becomes permanent, your discipline becomes stronger, and your wealth mindset multiplies. Share what you know, and in the process you elevate yourself, your community, and your future. One of the most misunderstood principles of wealth is that thinking big doesn't require living big. Many people believe that as their income rises, their lifestyle must rise with it. Bigger house, faster car, more luxuries. This is a trap. Expanding expenses to match income keeps most people trapped in scarcity, no matter how much they earn. True wealth comes from the ability to live below your means while thinking far beyond them, building assets, investments, and opportunities that compound over time. The secret is discipline, restraining the impulse to spend today so that tomorrow's freedom grows exponentially. I learned this lesson early on when my first raises tempted me to upgrade every part of my life. I could have easily spent every extra rupee on comfort, status, or appearance. But I realized that each rupee spent on indulgence was a rupee that wouldn't work for me, wouldn't generate more income, and wouldn't grow my financial independence. So I committed to living modestly, even as my income increased, and directed those extra dollars toward assets, small investments, savings, and entrepreneurial experiments. Over time, what felt like sacrifice in the moment turned into freedom, opportunity, and leverage that money alone cannot buy. The strategy is simple. Control lifestyle inflation. Track monthly expenses rigorously to identify leaks, the small purchases that quietly erode potential wealth. Avoid the temptation to match your lifestyle to every raise or bonus. Instead, redirect those funds into vehicles that multiply, investments, businesses, or education that increases your earning potential. Every extra dollar should have a job that serves your future, not your ego. This mindset transforms your relationship with money from reactive consumption to intentional creation. Living below your means does not mean thinking small. On the contrary, it creates the foundation to think bigger, take calculated risks, and seize opportunities without fear. While others are constrained by their expenses, you are free to explore new ventures, invest in growth, and create financial momentum. Modesty in lifestyle paired with expansiveness and vision is the hallmark of the wealthy. Remember, wealth is less about how much you earn and more about how much you keep, grow, and leverage. Live below your means, but always think beyond them, and you'll build a life where financial independence is not a dream, but an inevitable result of disciplined action. One of the most dangerous traps that keeps people from financial freedom is debt used for pleasure instead of purpose. Too often we are taught that borrowing is a shortcut to happiness, a flashy car, a luxurious vacation, the latest gadget. But this kind of debt doesn't build wealth, it enslaves your future. True financial freedom is created when every rupee borrowed works for you, not against you. Discipline, not desire, unlocks independence. The moment you treat debt as a tool rather than a toy, your path to wealth becomes far clearer and far faster. I've seen this in my own life and in countless people I've mentored. Early on, I watched friends buy into the illusion of prosperity with credit cards and loans for things that didn't generate income. They appeared wealthy, but their freedom was gone. They were trading years of future earnings for moments of present pleasure. I realized that the wealthy think differently. They borrow, if at all, for assets that produce cash flow or appreciation, not for consumption that disappears the moment it's acquired. This mindset is the difference between financial slavery and financial independence. The strategy is straightforward, but requires courage and restraint. First, eliminate high-interest debt immediately. It is the fastest drain on your ability to create wealth. Next, delay luxury until your assets, savings, investments, or entrepreneurial ventures generate enough income to afford it without compromising your freedom. This creates a cycle where money works for you instead of you working to pay for fleeting pleasures. Finally, save cash for opportunities rather than objects. When a true opportunity arises, a business venture, an investment, or a skill-building course, you want liquidity, not liabilities. Cash is freedom. Debt for indulgence is bondage. Every rupee you borrow or spend today has a ripple effect on your future. When you avoid debt for consumption, you gain not only financial leverage, but peace of mind. You're no longer constrained by monthly payments or interest, and your focus shifts to growth rather than survival. Discipline compounds faster than debt compounds, and over time, small choices accumulate into enormous freedom. Remember, debt is a servant when used for productivity, but a master when used for pleasure. Avoid borrowing for status, impulse, or indulgence, and you keep your future flexible, your options open, and your wealth-building potential unlimited. Financial freedom is never built on chains, it is built on discipline.